the killer. And what we desperately need is immediate, safe humanitarian access across all of Gaza. And that is the burden of our discussions with key parties. We urgently need a mechanism agreed by all relevant parties to allow for the regular provision of emergency needs throughout Gaza, to get the level of distribution of assistance up to what it was before these terrible weeks of 100 trucks a day providing assistance throughout Gaza to people in need. We need to get back to that level of ambition. For that, we need additional funding for agencies like UNRWA, World Food Programme, and of course for the Red Crescents in their leadership role. And without new funding, UNRWA, already painfully, woefully lacking in funds, will not have the ability to continue to deliver core services. But as Mr. President, as Tor said, and I'm glad he did, and he made two, I think, very important points. Gaza is not the only location of concern in this deeply troubling conflict. Since the start of the latest hostilities, the situation in the West Bank has also been deteriorating, as Tor said, and he should know. Last week was the deadliest week for Palestinians in the West Bank since the United Nations started recording fatalities in 2005, while settler violence incidents also have gone up from an average of 3 incidents a day to 8. Suffering knows no borders. Widespread closures throughout the West Bank are impacting the ability of communities to access essential services, and there is a real risk of the situation spiraling out of control. What the people of Israel, Palestine, the region need, what we all need, what this council's mandate is in existence to secure, is the sanity and humanitarian to prevail, drawing on the provisions of international humanitarian law for urgent efforts, this was Tor's second point, to arrest any further descent in this brutal calamity. Lana said it very eloquently, the worry that I suppose many of us have, where will this lead us? Where will this lead us when the fighting has taken place? Of course, we implore the parties to respect international humanitarian law. And by the way, I want to be very clear, a humanitarian ceasefire would go a long way to easing the epic human suffering. Finally, Mr. President, I know I've gone on too long. I want to conclude by expressing my deepest admiration, gratitude, and comity for the extraordinary people who are delivering life-saving and humanitarian services in Gaza, in the West Bank, as they do in so many other parts of the world. Many of whom are displaced, many have lost loved ones, many of our staff in all our agencies have had that kind of suffering. The dedication and bravery of ambulance crews, healthcare professionals, people working in hospitals and clinics, actually is a reminder of the fundamentals of humanity which drive our efforts to resolve these differences, to resolve them through diplomacy, through dialogue, through kindness, through generosity, and through accountability. I also want to express my profound personal gratitude. I have said it also already for Tor, but also to my colleague and his colleague, our Deputy Special Coordinator, Resident and Humanitarian Coordinator, somebody with a title as long as mine, Lynn Hastings, and the humanitarians who are demonstrating unwavering commitment to providing essential assistance and relief. Their collective efforts, their unstinting focus on key priorities which are based on operational needs exemplifies not just the United Nations' enduring commitment to extending hope and support, but exemplifies the commitment of the humanitarian community and its supporters, all of whom are in this room, to do the job that they have decided and resolved to choose for their lives. Sergio, Mr. President, thank you very much.
I thank Mr. Griffiths for his briefing. I now give the floor to the members of the Security Council. I give the floor to the representative of the Russian Federation.
Mr. President, colleagues, along with the delegations of the UAE and China, we initiated today's Emergency Security Council meeting given the tragic events in the Gaza Strip. Yesterday, as a result of airstrikes, the Ali Akha hospital was destroyed in the area of Gaza City. We are deeply shocked by what occurred. The Anglican Church Hospital was one of the 20 in northern Gaza that received evacuation notices from the Israeli military. However, it was impossible to meet that requirement, and Martin Griffiths already said that, given the prevailing unstable situation, the critical condition of many patients, and also the shortage of ambulances, staff, stretchers, and alternative accommodation for the displaced persons. The airstrike on the hospital, according to latest reports, caused over 800 deaths and injuries. We are calling for an objective investigation to be carried out and for the perpetrators to be prosecuted. Mr. President, colleagues, this is the price of the inertia of members of the Council, many of whom have procrastinated over the past 11 days since the start of the escalation surrounding Gaza. We warned you about this on Monday when a number of members of the Council, guided by, in inverted commas, purely humanitarian considerations, but actually by purely political considerations, did not support the Russian draft on the ceasefire. Our document laid out a number of specific urgent measures designed to stop violence and civilian suffering, designed to release the hostages and to prevent the impending humanitarian disaster in that part of Palestine and avoid the conflict spilling over into other countries of the region. Given the extremely tense situation, action should have been taken very promptly. This is precisely why our draft did not contain political elements or views or a mention of any party to the conflict that might have complicated reaching agreement on it. Despite this, in full view of the international community, the UN Security Council, the primary body for the maintenance of international peace and security, was not in a position to adopt a decision that could have prevented the humanitarian tragedy in Gaza. The Council did not send a clear, robust collective signal with a call for a swift, lasting, reasonable humanitarian ceasefire. Today, we have seen the terrible fruit of this. Once again, it's become clear that the position of Washington and some other Western capitals did not allow for a natural, logical decision to be taken. This, given the current circumstances, is an absolute key humanitarian imperative, and it is the moral duty of all responsible members of the international community. Furthermore, humanitarian considerations, the norms of international law, and the root causes of why the Palestinian question has not been settled, all things we've repeatedly and insistently stressed over recent years, of course, don't count for them. Mr. President, the number of injured and dead in Israel was, or dead and injured rather, was 1,400 and 3,900 respectively. And the number of victims in Palestine was more than 2,800 and 10,800 respectively. And today, these figures are even higher. As per UN reports, 450 children have died in Gaza and some 750 are still under the rubble of the buildings destroyed during the airstrikes. More than 2 million inhabitants of Gaza still have no water, food, medical assistance, fuel, or electricity. The only border crossing on the border with